The champagne glass shattered against marble, and I knew my life was about to change. I'd been managing the Azure Grand Hotel for 3 years, and in that time, I'd seen everything. Celebrity meltdowns, political scandals conducted in hushed whispers over expensive whiskey, marriage proposals that ended in screaming matches. But I'd never seen anything quite like the man who walked through our revolving doors on that rainy Tuesday evening in October. His name was Dante Morelli, or at least that's what I believed then. He moved through the lobby like he owned it, which, I would later discover, wasn't far from the truth. His suit probably cost more than my monthly salary, charcoal gray with subtle pinstripes that caught the light from our crystal chandeliers. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from Renaissance marble, sharp cheekbones, a jaw that seemed designed to intimidate, and eyes so dark they appeared black in certain lighting. "Mr. Kane," he said, approaching my desk with a confidence that made the world seem to rearrange itself around him. "I have a reservation." "Of course, Mr. Morelli," I replied, keeping my voice professionally pleasant, despite the way my heart had inexplicably started racing. "Welcome to the Azure Grand. We have your usual penthouse suite prepared." His usual suite. He'd been coming to the hotel for months, always booking through his assistant, always staying for exactly 3 days, always leaving generous tips for the staff. But this was the first time I'd actually met him face to face. "I appreciate efficiency," he said, those dark eyes studying me with an intensity that made me feel simultaneously exposed and electrified. "It's rare to find someone who actually cares about doing their job well." "Attention to detail matters," I responded, sliding his keycard across the desk. Our fingers brushed, just for a second, and I felt it. That spark of connection that everyone talks about, but most people never actually experience. He smiled, just a slight curve of his lips. "Indeed it does. Perhaps you could recommend somewhere for dinner. I'm tired of the usual corporate restaurants." That was how it started. A simple conversation about food that turned into a discussion about the neighborhood, which evolved into him asking if I'd like to join him for dinner after my shift ended. I should have said no. Hotel managers don't date guests, especially not guests who radiate danger the way Dante Morelli did. But there was something about him that drew me in, some magnetic pull I couldn't resist. "I'd like that," I heard myself say. That dinner changed everything. We talked for hours, at a small Italian restaurant he knew, tucked away in a corner of the city I'd never explored. He told me he worked in import-export, family business, complicated and demanding. I told him about growing up in Seattle, putting myself through hospitality school, working my way up from night desk clerk to manager. He listened like every word mattered, asked questions that showed genuine interest, made me laugh with dry observations about human nature. When he kissed me goodnight outside the restaurant, the rain had started again, and I felt like I was living in a movie scene, the kind that seems too perfect to be real. Over the following weeks, I fell into a rhythm with Dante. He'd arrive at the hotel every week, sometimes staying 3 days, sometimes just overnight. We'd have dinner together, long walks through the city, quiet conversations that felt more intimate than anything physical. He was reserved, careful with his words, but occasionally he'd reveal glimpses of something deeper, a sharp wit, a surprising tenderness, a sadness that seemed to live somewhere behind his eyes. But then the inconsistencies started. It was small things at first. One visit, Dante would order bourbon neat. The next, he'd request scotch, and seem surprised when I reminded him he usually drank bourbon. He'd reference conversations we'd never had, and forget things we'd discussed in detail. His mannerisms would shift, sometimes formal and controlled, other times more relaxed and playful, occasionally intense in a way that felt almost possessive. "Are you feeling all right?" I asked him one evening as we sat in the hotel bar. "You seem different lately." He tensed, just slightly. "Different how?" "I don't know," I admitted, swirling the wine in my glass. "Sometimes it feels like I'm talking to a different person." Something flickered across his face. Guilt? Fear? But it vanished so quickly I thought I'd imagined it. "I've been under a lot of stress with work," he said smoothly. "Perhaps I'm not being very present. I apologize." I wanted to believe him. I was falling in love with him after all, and love makes you overlook things you probably shouldn't. But the feeling persisted, and growing stronger with each visit. My best friend Marcus noticed it too. "There's something off about this guy," he said one afternoon, as we grabbed coffee at our usual spot near the hotel. Marcus had been my roommate in hospitality school, and remained one of the few people I trusted completely. "You've been dating him for 2 months, and you still haven't been to his place. He only sees you when he's in town for business. You don't have a single photo of the two of you together." "He's private," I defended, though even I could hear how weak it sounded. "His work is sensitive." "Adrian, honey, you're one of the smartest people I know. Don't let your feelings make you stupid." Marcus fixed me with his no-nonsense stare. "What do you actually know about Dante Morelli?" The question haunted me. What did I know? He was wealthy, connected, moved in circles I could barely imagine. He'd never actually explained what his import-export business involved. His phone calls, when they came during our time together, were always conducted in Italian, and he'd step away to take them. He'd never introduced me to anyone from his life, never mentioned family beyond vague references to his father's company. I decided to do something I'm not proud of. I looked him up. The search results were surprisingly sparse. A few business filings for Morelli International Trading, registered to a Dante Morelli. Some society page photos from charity galas, showing a man who looked like my Dante in a tuxedo, always alone or with older men in expensive suits. A brief mention in a business journal about expansion into new markets. Nothing personal, nothing revealing, nothing that explained the inconsistencies. Then I found something that made my blood run cold. A photo from a society event dated 6 months ago. The caption read, "Lorenzo Morelli at the annual Children's Hospital Gala." But the man in the photo was identical to Dante. Exactly identical. I stared at my laptop screen for what felt like hours, my mind racing through impossible explanations. A mistake in the caption? A relative with an uncanny resemblance? But no, the resemblance wasn't just uncanny. It was perfect. Same face, same build, same way of carrying himself. The next time Dante came to the hotel, I was ready. I'd planned to confront him calmly, rationally, to ask for an explanation like a mature adult. But the moment I saw him walking through the lobby, something inside me snapped. "We need to talk," I said, cutting off his greeting. "Now, privately." He followed me to my office without argument, closing the door behind us. When he turned to face me, I saw it. The flash of guilt, of knowing he'd been caught. "Who are you really?" I demanded. "And don't tell me you're just Dante Morelli, because I've seen photos of Lorenzo Morelli, and he has your exact face." For a long moment, he just looked at me. Then he sighed, and when he spoke, even his voice sounded different, lighter somehow, more expressive. "You're right," he said quietly. "I'm not who you think I am. Or rather, I'm not just who you think I am." "What does that mean?" "My name is Sebastian," he said. and suddenly I could see it. This wasn't the controlled, reserved Dante I'd first met. This was someone else, wearing the same face but with different energy, different mannerisms. Sebastian Morelli. Dante is my brother. My triplet brother. The words hung in the air between us like smoke. Triplets, of course. It explained everything and nothing at all. You've been pretending to be one person, I said slowly, my mind struggling to process this revelation. How many of you? Who else have I been? I couldn't even finish the sentence. The implications were too enormous, too violating. All three of us, Sebastian admitted, and now I could see the shame in his expression. Dante, Lorenzo, and me. We've all been seeing you, each pretending to be the same man. I felt the room spin. Every intimate conversation, every kiss, every moment I thought I'd been building something real. It had been a lie. 3 different men, playing with my feelings like it was a game. Get out, I whispered. Adrian, please, let me explain. I said get out. My voice cracked, and I hated that he could see me breaking. All of you. I don't want to see any version of Dante Morelli in this hotel ever again. Sebastian, or whoever he really was, looked like he wanted to argue, but something in my expression must have convinced him it was futile. He left without another word, and I locked my office door and let myself fall apart. But the universe, it seemed, had other plans. That night, as I was closing up the hotel, preparing to head home, and maybe drink enough wine to forget this entire nightmare, the power went out. Not just in the hotel, across the entire block. Through the windows, I could see the city plunged into unexpected darkness. Mr. Kane. One of my night clerks appeared with a flashlight. We've got a situation. There are men in the parking garage. They're asking for the registry of current guests. Ice flooded my veins. What men? They didn't identify themselves, but... The clerk, a young woman named Sarah, looked genuinely frightened. They had guns. Hotel protocol for security threats kicked in. I pulled out my phone to call 911, but the call wouldn't connect. The cell towers must have been affected by whatever caused the blackout. We had a landline emergency phone in the security office. I never made it there. The men came up from the garage before I could reach the security office. 3 of them, wearing dark clothes, moving with military precision. One grabbed Sarah, and I heard her scream. Let her go, I shouted, stepping between them and my employee. Whatever you want, I'll cooperate. Just don't hurt anyone. The apparent leader, a man with a scar running down his left cheek, smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. Adrian Kane, you're coming with us. Why? I'm nobody. You're somebody to the Morellis, Scar said. And that makes you valuable. Before I could process that statement, before I could run or fight or do anything at all, everything happened at once. The hotel's front entrance exploded inward. Not literally, but 3 men burst through with such force it might as well have been an explosion. And I recognized them immediately, even in the dim emergency lighting. They had the same face. 3 identical faces, actually, but now that I knew what to look for, I could see the subtle differences. The way one moved with calculated precision, another with barely contained violence, the third with fluid grace. Oh, the Morelli triplets had arrived. What followed was chaos. The men who'd grabbed Sarah and threatened me were professionals, but the triplets were something else entirely. I'd never seen people move like that outside of action movies. Precise, coordinated, lethal. Within minutes, the threat was neutralized, the attackers subdued and zip-tied. I stood frozen, trying to reconcile the men I'd been dating with these dangerous strangers who just executed what looked like a military operation in my hotel lobby. Adrian, one of them approached me. Dante, I thought, based on the reserved control in his movements. Are you hurt? What the hell is happening? I demanded, finding my voice. Who were those men? Why did they want me? And what are you really? The three of them exchanged looks, some silent communication passing between them. Then another one stepped forward. Lorenzo, maybe, given the intensity radiating from him. We owe you the truth, he said. All of it. But not here. We need to get you somewhere safe first. Safe from what? Safe from who? My voice was rising, hysteria creeping in. I don't even know who you are. The third brother, Sebastian, who'd confessed everything earlier, moved closer. Those men work for the Calabrese family. They're our enemies, and they targeted you because they know you matter to us, to all of us. Your enemies, I repeated numbly. This is about more than import-export, isn't it? Much more, Dante confirmed. Adrian, my family. We're not exactly legitimate businessmen. The implication hung in the air. Mafia, of course. Everything suddenly made a horrible kind of sense. The money, the secrecy, the danger, and the way they moved like trained killers. I can't do this, I said, backing away from all three of them. I can't be part of whatever this is. Just leave me alone. All of you. They know about you now, Lorenzo said, and there was genuine anguish in his voice. Leaving you alone means leaving you vulnerable. Please, Adrian, just come with us tonight. Let us explain everything. Then if you want to walk away, we'll protect you from a distance, but at least you'll know what you're up against. I looked at the three of them, these strangers with familiar faces, these men who'd lied to me and saved me in the same breath. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to get as far from this insanity as possible. But I'd seen those other men, seen the guns, heard them say I was valuable, and I knew, with sick certainty, that whether I wanted to be or not, I was already part of this. Fine, I said, but I want the truth. All of it. No more lies. They took me to a penthouse across the city, a place that made the Azure Grand's luxury suites look modest. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, modern furniture that probably cost more than my car, security that included armed guards in the lobby and what looked like bulletproof glass. We sat in the living room, me in an armchair, the three of them on the sofa across from me, looking so identical and yet so different now that I knew to look for the distinctions. Start talking, I said, and I want to know who's who. No more pretending to be one person. The one in the middle spoke first. I'm Dante Morelli. I'm the eldest by 3 minutes. I run the legitimate side of our family business and serve as the public face of the Morelli Empire. Lorenzo Morelli, said the one on the left, whose energy seemed coiled, ready to spring. I handle security and enforcement. I'm the middle brother. Sebastian Morelli, said the third, the one who'd confessed to me earlier. The youngest. I manage intelligence and strategy. And your family business is organized crime, I stated flatly. Our father built an empire, Dante said carefully. Import-export was part of it, yes, but also construction, waste management, labor unions. Some of it exists in legal gray areas. Some of it doesn't. He's saying we're mafia, Lorenzo cut in bluntly. No point dancing around it. The Morelli family has controlled this city's underworld for 3 generations. I should have been terrified. I should have run screaming. Instead, I felt oddly calm, like I'd moved past panic into some realm of surreal acceptance. Okay, I said. So you're mafia triplets. That explains the danger. Now explain why all three of you decided to pretend to be one person and date me. The silence that followed was heavy with guilt. Finally, Sebastian spoke. It started with Dante. He met you first, genuinely. But our lives are complicated, dangerous. He knew getting involved with you was selfish, but he couldn't stay away. I thought I could compartmentalize, Dante admitted. Keep you separate from the family business. See you when I could, and keep you safe by maintaining distance. But I was falling in love with you, and that made everything more complicated. Lorenzo picked up the story. I figured out Dante was seeing someone, and I followed him to the hotel, saw you, and... He ran a hand through his hair, looking genuinely uncomfortable. I was curious. I came to the hotel pretending to be Dante, just to see what you were like. But then we talked, and I understood why my brother was taking such risks. You're real, Adrian, genuine. You didn't care about the money or the power. You just cared about the person you thought you were getting to know. So you decided to keep lying to me, I said bitterly. I decided I wanted to know you too, Lorenzo corrected. Was it wrong? Absolutely. But we don't exactly do things the conventional way. And you? I turned to Sebastian. What's your excuse? I was the last to fall, Sebastian said quietly. I discovered what my brothers were doing and confronted them. We fought about it, almost came to blows actually, which is rare for us. We agreed it had to stop, that we'd tell you the truth. But then I went to the hotel to explain everything. And I met you. And... He trailed off, shaking his head. I'm the one who convinced my brothers to keep the secret going. I told myself we'd find the right time to explain, that we'd figure out a way to make it work. But mostly I was just a coward who didn't want to lose something I'd barely gotten to have. I stared at the three of them, processing this insane confession. 3 brothers, all falling for the same man, all lying about it, all risking exposure because they couldn't stay away. Did you ever think about what this would do to me? I asked quietly. How violated I'd feel. How much it would hurt to realize that every moment I thought was real was actually... What? A rotation? Did you have a schedule? Compare notes about what to talk about so you'd keep your stories straight? The shame on their faces was answer enough. I should hate you, I continued, surprised by how steady my voice was. I should walk out of here and never look back. But those men came for me tonight. They knew my name. They said I mattered to the Morellis. So tell me honestly, am I in danger now because of whatever this was between us? Yes, Dante said simply. The Calabrese family has been trying to move into our territory for months. They'll see you as leverage, a weakness they can exploit. We can protect you, but I'll always be a target, as long as I'm connected to you. I finished. Great. So you didn't just break my heart. You made me a liability in a mob war. Adrian. All 3 started speaking at once, then stopped, exchanged looks. It would have been funny if it wasn't so awful. I need time, I said, standing up. I need to think about all of this without you 3 hovering around me with your identical faces and your guilt and your mob war drama. Can you at least give me that? We can protect you better if you stay here, Dante began. I'll assign guards to your apartment, Lorenzo offered. Please don't make any decisions tonight. Sebastian pleaded. I held up a hand. I'm not making any decisions. I'm just asking for space to process the fact that my boyfriend turned out to be 3 different people who happened to be mafia brothers. That seems like a reasonable request. They couldn't argue with that, though they clearly wanted to. In the end, Lorenzo drove me home personally, checking my apartment for threats while I stood in the doorway, feeling like my life had turned into a bizarre thriller novel. "I know you have no reason to trust anything we say," Lorenzo told me before leaving, his voice low and intense. "But what I feel for you is real. What all three of us feel is real. The method was wrong. The deception was unforgivable. But the emotions? Those were never fake." After he left, I sat in my dark apartment, staring at nothing, trying to understand how I'd gone from managing a hotel and dating someone I thought I loved to being caught in the middle of a mafia love triangle. The thing was, underneath the anger and betrayal and fear, part of me understood. I'd felt the connection with all three of them, though I'd thought it was one person. I'd loved Dante's quiet intensity, the way he made me feel safe and cherished. I'd loved Lorenzo's passion, the way he made me feel alive and desired. I'd loved Sebastian's cleverness, the way he challenged me intellectually and made me laugh. If they'd been three separate people I'd met independently, would I have been drawn to all of them? Probably. They were fundamentally different despite sharing DNA, each compelling in his own way. But they'd taken away my choice. They'd decided together to deceive me, and that betrayal cut deeper than anything else. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This isn't over, Adrian. You matter to us. All of us. When you're ready to talk, we'll be here. D, L, and S." I stared at that message for a long time before finally setting my phone aside and trying to sleep. Tomorrow I'd figure out what to do. Tomorrow, I'd decide whether to run from this situation or confront it head on. Tonight, I just needed to survive the truth. The morning after the triplets' revelation, I woke to find Marcus sitting in my kitchen, drinking my coffee and looking at me, with an expression that clearly said, "I told you so." "How did you get in here?" I croaked, my voice rough from a mostly sleepless night. "You gave me a key, remember? And you weren't answering your phone." He slid a mug across the counter toward me. "Also, there are two extremely large, extremely intimidating men in suits standing outside your building, pretending to be regular pedestrians. Care to explain?" I took the coffee and drank deeply before answering. "It's complicated. Adrian, honey, the very hot businessman you've been dating is actually three very hot businessmen who are apparently mafia triplets. I'd say it's moved well past complicated into absolutely insane." Marcus fixed me with his most serious stare. "Talk to me. What happened last night after you called saying you needed space?" So I told him everything. The attack at the hotel, the rescue, the penthouse, the full confession. Marcus listened without interrupting, his expression cycling through shock, disbelief, concern, and something that might have been grudging fascination. "Okay," he said when I finished. "Okay, first priority. Are you safe?" "According to them, I'm in danger from their enemies, whether I stay involved or not," I said bitterly. Apparently being connected to the Morellis makes me a target. Which means those bodyguards outside are watching over me. Lorenzo's orders, probably." Marcus was quiet for a moment, processing. Then he asked the question I'd been asking myself all night. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me wants to run as far from this mess as possible. Get a new job in a new city, change my name, start over. But another part of me can't stop thinking about them." I hated admitting it. When I think about Dante, the version I thought was just Dante, I remember how safe I felt with him, how seen, and when I remember the more playful moments, the passionate ones, the intellectually challenging ones, those were Lorenzo and Sebastian. They were all real, Marcus. different facets of what I thought was one person, but all genuinely connecting with me. That doesn't excuse the lying, Marcus pointed out. No, it doesn't, but it makes it more complicated than just cutting them off and moving on. I rubbed my eyes, exhausted. They're dangerous people, living dangerous lives, but they risked themselves to save me last night. They didn't have to do that. They could have let those other mobsters take me and avoided the conflict. So you're considering actually pursuing this? Pursuing all three of them? Hearing it stated so baldly made me flinch. I don't know. Is that even possible? A relationship with three people? It sounds insane. Everything about this is insane, Marcus said. But I've known you for 10 years, and I've never seen you as happy as you've been these past 2 months. Even with all the weirdness you were noticing, you glowed when you talked about Dante. Or them. Whoever. I need to talk to them, I decided, individually. I need to understand who they really are, not who they were pretending to be. And I need to know if what I felt was real or just a response to their manipulation. My phone buzzed. A text from another unknown number. When you're ready to talk, we're ready to listen. Individually or together. Whatever you need. Dante. I showed it to Marcus, who raised an eyebrow. Well, that's convenient timing. What are you going to say? That I want to meet with each of them separately. Neutral territory. Public places. I started typing out a response. And I want honest answers to every question I ask, no matter how uncomfortable. The response came quickly. Agreed. Name the time and place. Over the next 3 days, I met with each of the Morelli brothers individually. I chose different restaurants around the city, places busy enough that we wouldn't be overheard, but public enough that I felt safe. The bodyguards I'd apparently acquired followed at a discreet distance, a constant reminder of the danger lurking around the edges of this situation. Dante was first. He arrived exactly on time, wearing a different suit, but the same controlled demeanor I recognized from our first meeting. We sat across from each other in a quiet corner booth, and for a long moment, neither of us spoke. "Thank you for agreeing to see me," he finally said. "I'm not agreeing to anything except a conversation," I replied coolly. "Let's be clear about that." He nodded, accepting the boundary. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. But let's start with this. Were any of your feelings real, or was I just a game to you?" Dante's jaw tightened, the only sign of emotion breaking through his controlled facade. "My feelings were never a game. I met you that first night, and I was captivated. You were genuine in a world where everyone wants something from me. You saw me as a person, not a name or a bank account or a means to power." "But I didn't see you," I countered. "I saw whoever you were pretending to be that day. You, or Lorenzo, or Sebastian." "You saw me," Dante insisted. "The reserved parts, the careful parts, the parts that have learned to be cautious because showing vulnerability in my world is dangerous. That was all genuine. I just let my brothers show you the parts of myself I've learned to hide." "That's a convenient rationalization." "It's the truth." He leaned forward, and I saw real pain in those dark eyes. "Adrian, I've spent my entire life being the eldest son, the heir, the responsible one. I've had to be perfect, controlled, unshakable. With you, I could be softer. I could want things beyond duty and family obligation. I could imagine a life where I wasn't just Dante Morelli, mafia prince, but just a man who'd found someone worth taking risks for." "So you took the risk of lying to me?" "I took the risk of wanting you at all," he corrected. "Everything else was me being a coward." I should have walked away that first night. I should have protected you from my world. But I was selfish. And I'm sorry for that. I studied his face, looking for deception. But all I saw was regret, and something that looked like genuine anguish. Tell me about your world, I said. The real one, not import-export. The actual family business. Dante spent the next hour explaining the Morelli Empire in detail. Their legitimate businesses, shipping, construction, several restaurant chains. Their less legitimate operations, gambling, loan sharking, protection services. The network of families across the country, the alliances and rivalries, the codes of conduct that governed their world. We're not the Sopranos, he said with a slight smile. We don't kill people for looking at us wrong. But we do operate outside the law, and yes, violence is sometimes necessary to maintain our position. I won't insult you by pretending otherwise. Have you killed anyone? I asked bluntly. He met my eyes steadily. Yes. The honesty was jarring. I'd expected him to evade or rationalize. But he just owned it. How do you live with that? By telling myself it was necessary. By believing that the people I've hurt were threats to my family, to innocent people under our protection. By remembering that if I don't do these things, someone worse will take our place. He paused. I'm not asking you to accept it or understand it. I'm just being honest, like you asked. We talked until the restaurant started closing, and by the end, I had a clearer picture of who Dante Morelli really was. A man trapped between the life he was born into and the life he might have wanted. Someone burdened by responsibility and isolated by power, trying to find moments of genuine connection in a world built on manipulation. I meant what I said that first night, Dante told me as we stood to leave. You have the most beautiful way of seeing the good in people. I don't want to be the one who destroys that. Lorenzo was next, and he was different from the start. We met at a boxing gym he apparently owned, after hours when it was empty. He was already there when I arrived, working a heavy bag with focused intensity that was almost hypnotic to watch. Hope you don't mind meeting here, he said, breathing hard as he unwrapped his hands. I think better when I'm moving. It's fine, I said, though being alone with him in an empty gym made me more nervous than I wanted to admit. Lorenzo seemed to sense my discomfort. The bodyguards are right outside. You're safe, Adrian. From everyone, including me. Are you the dangerous brother? I asked. He laughed, a sound without much humor. We're all dangerous. I'm just more honest about it. We sat on the edge of the boxing ring, legs dangling, and Lorenzo talked. Where Dante had been measured and careful, Lorenzo was raw and intense, emotions closer to the surface. I knew seeing you was wrong, he said. I knew Dante had feelings for you, and stealing time with you by pretending to be him was a massive betrayal. Brothers don't do that to each other, especially not triplets. We're supposed to be closer than anyone, you know? 3 parts of the same whole. But you did it anyway. Yeah, I did. Because from the moment I saw you, I felt this pull, like you were meant to be in my life somehow. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. I know how that sounds, like some romantic bullshit to excuse the inexcusable, but it's true. You made me want to be better than what I am. What are you, Lorenzo? Really? He looked at me directly, unflinching. I'm the family enforcer. When someone breaks the rules, threatens our people, tries to move in on our territory, I'm the one who handles it. I'm good at violence, Adrian. It comes naturally to me in a way that's probably not healthy. I've hurt a lot of people. Do you enjoy it? The question seemed to surprise him. Sometimes, he admitted, when it's someone who deserves it. When I'm protecting people I care about, yeah, there's satisfaction in it. Does that make me a monster? I don't know, I answered honestly. I'm still trying to figure that out. We talked about his childhood, about growing up as one of 3 identical brothers in a crime family, about the pressure to prove himself as more than just one of the triplets. He told me about the first time he disappointed his father by showing mercy to someone who'd betrayed the family, and how he learned to bury that compassionate impulse beneath the ruthless persona he projected. With you, I didn't have to be just the enforcer, Lorenzo said. I could be the guy who makes you laugh, who takes you to concerts and art galleries, who argues with you about stupid movies. I could be Lorenzo without the Morelli weight. But you were lying about who you were the entire time. I was lying about my identity, he corrected. But every emotion was real. Every moment we spent together, every conversation, every time I made you smile, that was genuine. I just wanted more time being the person I am, with you instead of the person I have to be for everyone else. As the sun set through the gym's high windows, Lorenzo asked me something that had clearly been weighing on him. Can you forgive us? Not just me, but all 3 of us. I don't know, I said. Forgiveness feels like too big a question right now. I'm still trying to process the fact that you exist, that all 3 of you exist, and that you all... I trailed off, not sure how to finish. Love you, Lorenzo finished quietly. We all love you, Adrian. In different ways, maybe, but all real. The 3rd meeting was with Sebastian, and he chose a museum. We walked through the modern art wing, talking in low voices among the sculptures and paintings. Sebastian was the most visibly nervous of the 3, which surprised me. I'd expected him to be smooth and charming, the one who'd orchestrated the continued deception, but instead he seemed genuinely anxious about this conversation. I'm the worst of us, he said, without preamble, as we stopped in front of a Jackson Pollock. Dante at least had the excuse of falling first and not knowing what to do. Lorenzo acted on impulse, on emotion. But I knew better. I saw what was happening, understood how wrong it was, and actively chose to keep it going. Why? Sebastian was quiet for a long moment, studying the chaotic patterns of the painting. Because I'm used to being the smart one, the one who sees 10 steps ahead, the one who solves problems. And when I met you, you were a problem I couldn't solve. You made me feel things I couldn't strategize my way out of. We moved to another gallery, this one featuring abstract sculptures. Sebastian talked about his role in the family, the intelligence gathering, the strategy, the manipulation of markets and people and circumstances to maintain the Morelli position. He was the one who planned their operations, who anticipated their enemies' moves, who turned information into power. I live in my head, he explained. I analyze, calculate, predict. Emotions are messy, unpredictable. I've spent my whole life trying to minimize their impact on my decisions. And then you met me. And then I met you. And suddenly all my analytical skills were useless. I couldn't predict how you'd react to things. I couldn't manipulate the situation to a desired outcome. You were just real, present, honest in a way I'd forgotten people could be. I stopped in front of a sculpture that looked like twisted metal and glass somehow frozen in the moment before shattering. So you decided the solution was to lie to me more thoroughly? I decided the solution was to have more time to figure out a better solution, Sebastian corrected, which I realize now was just another form of cowardice. You keep using that word, cowardice. Because that's what it was. All three of us were too cowardly to risk losing you by telling the truth. So we kept lying and told ourselves we'd find the right moment. But there was never going to be a right moment, was there? We sat on a bench in front of a massive canvas of bold color blocks. Sebastian turned to face me, and I saw something in his expression I hadn't seen in either of his brothers: complete vulnerability. "I don't know what happens now," he said. "I don't have a plan or a strategy or a calculated approach. All I know is that I love you, and I've never said that to anyone before. I don't know what it means to love someone outside of theory and observation, but when I'm with you, I want to learn." The honesty of it hit me harder than any of the carefully constructed explanations. Here was Sebastian Morelli, the strategist, the planner, admitting he had no idea what came next. "What do you want from me?" I asked. "A chance," he said simply. "Not to go back to how things were, that's impossible now, but a chance to move forward honestly. To let you know all three of us as we really are, not as the composite person we were pretending to be. And then, to let you decide if any version of this could work." After meeting with all three brothers individually, I spent 2 days alone in my apartment, thinking. Marcus came by with food and moral support, but wisely didn't push me to talk. The bodyguards remained outside, a constant reminder that regardless of my personal feelings, I was now connected to the Morelli world, whether I liked it or not. The question wasn't whether I could forgive them. The question was whether I wanted to try. I'd felt the connections with all three of them, even knowing now that they were separate people. Dante's quiet strength, Lorenzo's fierce passion, Sebastian's sharp intelligence, they called to different parts of me. The relationship I'd thought I had with one person had actually been a relationship with three, each offering something unique, now each touching something different in my heart. But could I actually do this? Could I be with all three of them? The logistics alone seemed impossible, and that wasn't even considering the moral implications, the social judgment, the sheer weirdness of dating triplets. On the third day, I made my decision. I called the number Dante had texted from and said 4 words: "We need to talk." They came to my apartment together, all three of them, looking nervous in a way that was almost endearing. I'd never seen them together before, and the effect was surreal. 3 versions of the same handsome face, but each carrying himself so differently that I wondered how I'd ever thought they were one person. "I've thought a lot about this," I began, and they all tensed. "About what you did, why you did it, and what it means going forward." "Adrian," Dante started, but I held up a hand. "Let me finish. What you did was wrong, unforgivable by most people's standards. You lied to me, manipulated me, took away my ability to make informed choices about my own life. You should have told me the truth from the beginning." They all nodded, accepting the condemnation. "But," I continued, and saw hope flicker in their identical eyes, "I also understand why you did it. Not excuse it, but understand it. And I felt the connections with all of you. Those were real, even if the circumstances weren't." "So what does that mean?" Lorenzo asked. "It means I'm willing to try something," I said carefully. "Not a return to the lies, but something new, something honest." "What kind of something?" Sebastian asked. I took a deep breath. This was the insane part. The part that would sound crazy if I said it out loud. I want to get to know each of you. Really know you. Date you individually. Understand who you are as separate people. And then, we'll see if there's a way this could actually work." "You mean all three of us?" Dante clarified. Together? I don't know what I mean, I admitted. I've never done anything like this. I don't even know if it's possible. But I know I don't want to choose between you. I know that each of you connects with a different part of me, and losing any of you feels wrong. They exchanged looks. That silent triplet communication I was starting to recognize. There are things you need to know, Dante said. Our world, our family, our father. It's complicated. If you pursue this with us, with any of us, you're stepping into a life most people can't understand or accept. I know, or at least, I'm starting to understand. Our enemies will see you as a weakness, Lorenzo added. We can protect you, but there will always be risk. I'm already a target, according to you. At least this way, I'm choosing it. Society won't understand, Sebastian said. The judgment will be harsh. Society judges everything that doesn't fit in a neat box, I countered. I stopped caring about that a long time ago. Dante stood and crossed to where I sat, kneeling in front of me so we were eye to eye. We don't deserve this chance. We know that. But if you're offering it, we won't waste it. No more lies, no more games. Just honesty, even when it's difficult. Especially when it's difficult, I corrected. Lorenzo joined us, his intensity focused entirely on me. I'll protect you with everything I have. That's not romance talk. That's a promise. No one will hurt you while I'm breathing. Sebastian was last, taking my hand in his. I'll figure this out. I'll find a way to make it work, even though there's no playbook for this, because you're worth the complexity. I looked at the three of them, these dangerous, complicated, identical men who'd somehow become central to my life. This was insane. This was impossible. This was probably the worst decision I'd ever make, but it also felt right in a way I couldn't explain. Okay, I said, let's try this, but on my terms. Complete honesty, no secrets, and if I say stop, we stop. Agreed. Agreed, they said in unison. And for the first time since this whole mess started, I smiled. The next few weeks were a strange kind of education. I went on separate dates with each brother, learning to distinguish them not just by their mannerisms, but by the way they made me feel. With Dante, I felt safe and cherished. We'd have quiet dinners, long conversations about philosophy and life, moments of peaceful intimacy that didn't require words. He was teaching me about his world, introducing me slowly to the reality of the family business, without overwhelming me. With Lorenzo, I felt alive and exhilarated. We'd go to concerts, try extreme sports, have passionate debates about everything from politics to art. He pushed me out of my comfort zone and made me feel bold in ways I'd never experienced. With Sebastian, I felt intellectually stimulated and understood. We'd visit museums, attend lectures, play strategic games that tested my mind. He challenged me to think differently, to see patterns and connections I'd never noticed before. And slowly, I began to fall in love with all three of them. Not as one composite person, but as three distinct individuals who each offered something irreplaceable. But it wasn't easy. Jealousy cropped up, both from them and from me. When I spent time with one, the others struggled with feeling left out. When I tried to balance my attention equally, I felt stretched thin. The logistics of dating three people, even three people who lived together and were literally identical, were exhausting. This isn't sustainable, I told them one evening when we were all together at their penthouse. I care about all of you, but I'm one person trying to be in three relationships simultaneously. Well, something has to change. What do you need? Dante asked. I don't know. I just know that keeping you all separate, pretending these are three individual relationships that don't affect each other. It's not working. Lorenzo leaned forward. What if we stopped pretending they're separate? What do you mean? I mean, what if we acknowledged that this is one relationship with 4 people in it? He explained. Not you dating 3 of us individually, but all of us together, figuring out how to make this work as a unit. The idea was terrifying and thrilling in equal measure. Is that even possible? I asked. Nothing about this is normal, Sebastian pointed out. Why should we try to force it into a conventional structure? We could create something new, something that works for us specifically. Our father wants to meet you, Dante said, changing the subject in a way that clearly wasn't random. He knows about you, about what's developing between us. He wants to understand who you are. The Mafia patriarch wants to meet me? I said slowly. That's not terrifying at all. He's not a monster, Lorenzo said. Demanding, yes, traditional in many ways. But he values family above everything. And right now, you're becoming family. Am I? All 3 of them looked at me with such intensity that I felt it like a physical force. Yes, they said together. The meeting with Vincent Morelli, patriarch of the family, happened at the family estate outside the city. It was a massive property, all old money and careful security, the kind of place that made my small apartment seem microscopic by comparison. Vincent Morelli was in his 60s, with gray hair and the same dark eyes his sons shared. He carried himself with the authority of someone who'd commanded power for decades and expected obedience as naturally as breathing. Adrian Kane, he said, studying me with an intensity that made me understand where his sons got it from. My boys tell me you're important to them. All 3 of them. Yes, sir, I managed. That's unusual. Everything about this is unusual, sir. He smiled slightly at that. Fair point. Sit. Let's talk. We sat in his study, a room lined with books and expensive art, and Vincent asked me questions about my background, my work, my family, my understanding of what his sons did for a living. I answered honestly, knowing that lying to this man would be both impossible and stupid. You understand that being connected to my family means accepting certain realities, he said. We operate outside conventional society in many ways. The work we do is necessary, but not always legal. The enemies we've made are dangerous. The life is not easy. I'm beginning to understand that, yes. And yet you're still here. I love your sons, I said simply. All of them. I don't fully understand how that's possible. But it's true. Vincent was quiet for a long moment, studying me with those penetrating eyes. Then he said something that surprised me. My sons are good men, despite the world they were born into. They try to be honorable within a dishonorable profession. If you can love them as they are, not as you wish they were, then you're worth protecting. Is that your blessing? That's me saying I'll reserve judgment until I see how this plays out. But they've chosen you, and I trust their judgment. That means you're under family protection now. Anyone who threatens you threatens the Morellis. It should have felt comforting. Instead, it felt like the cage had closed fully around me, locking me into this world with no easy exit. As I was leaving, Vincent called after me. Adrian, my sons deceived you, and that was wrong. But they're willing to risk everything for you. Their reputation, their safety, even their relationship with each other. Don't take that lightly. I didn't. That was the problem. I understood exactly how much they were risking, and it terrified me. The crisis came from an unexpected direction. One night, as I was closing the hotel, I received a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Adrian Kane," a voice I didn't recognize said. "We need to talk about your boyfriends." "Who is this?" "Someone who knows what the Morellis really are. Someone who knows you're being used." "I'm hanging up now." "They killed my brother," the voice said, and something in the tone made me pause. "Lorenzo Morelli executed him in cold blood, and now they've got you convinced there's something other than monsters. I don't know who you are or what you want. I want you to see the truth. Meet me tomorrow, noon at Riverside Park. Come alone. I'll show you exactly what your lovers are capable of." The line went dead. I should have told the Morellis immediately. I should have let Lorenzo's security team handle it. Instead, I found myself at Riverside Park the next day, sitting on a bench near the fountain, waiting to meet a stranger who claimed to know terrible truths about the men I was falling in love with. He arrived right on time, a man in his 30s, wearing a jacket. Despite the warm weather, looking around nervously before sitting beside me. "You came alone," he said. "That was brave or stupid." "Probably stupid," I admitted. "I'm guessing you have people watching. The Morellis aren't the only ones with resources." He pulled out a tablet and handed it to me. "Press play." The video was surveillance footage from what looked like a warehouse. I watched as Lorenzo Morelli walked into frame, followed by two other Morelli's men. They were dragging someone, a young man who was pleading, crying, begging for mercy. I watched, feeling sick, as Lorenzo pulled out a gun. "His name was Tommy Calabrese," the man beside me said quietly. "My younger brother. He was trying to leave the life, go straight, start over. But your boyfriend decided to make an example of him." On the screen, the gun fired. The young man fell. Lorenzo walked away without looking back. I couldn't breathe. "That's who you're sleeping with," the man said. "A killer. They all are. And they'll destroy you eventually, just like they destroy everyone who gets close to them." He took the tablet back, stood up, and walked away, leaving me sitting on that bench trying to process what I'd just seen. That night, I confronted Lorenzo. "Did you kill Tommy Calabrese?" I demanded, standing in the penthouse while all three brothers stared at me. Lorenzo's face went carefully blank. "Where did you hear that name?" "Just answer the question. Did you kill him?" "Yes." The admission hit like a physical blow. "He was begging for his life," I said, my voice shaking. "He was crying, Lorenzo. He looked terrified." "Adrian, let me explain the context." "What context makes that okay? What context justifies executing someone who's pleading for mercy?" Dante stepped forward. "Tommy Calabrese betrayed both families. He was playing us against the Calabreses, feeding information to both sides, trying to start a war so he could profit from the chaos. People died because of his actions. Good people, innocent people. So you murdered him." "We executed a traitor according to the codes of our world," Dante corrected. "It wasn't personal. It was justice." "Your justice," I shot back. "The justice of criminals who think they're above the law." Sebastian tried a different approach. "Adrian, we've never pretended to be good men. We've told you what we do, what our world requires. This isn't new information." "Knowing it abstractly is different from seeing it," I said, feeling tears burning my eyes. "Seeing the person I love pull a trigger on someone who was begging for their life, that's different." "Who showed you that footage?" Lorenzo demanded. "Who got to you? Does it matter? It happened. You did it. And now I have to decide if I can live with loving someone capable of that." The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken fears. Finally, Lorenzo spoke, his voice rough with emotion. "I am a killer, Adrian. I've taken lives, and I'll probably take more before this is all over. If you can't accept that, if you can't love me knowing what I am, then you should walk away now. Because I won't lie to you about it, and I won't pretend to be something I'm not. I don't want you to be something else," I said, wiping at my eyes furiously. "I want to understand how the person who makes me laugh and holds me like I'm precious can also be someone who executes people in warehouses." "Because I'm both," Lorenzo said simply. "I'm the man who loves you, and the man who does terrible things to protect the people I love. They're not separate, Adrian. They're both me." I looked at all three of them. These men I'd fallen for. These criminals who'd somehow become essential to me. They were dangerous. They were killers. They operated outside all moral and legal boundaries I'd been raised to respect, and I loved them anyway. "I need time," I said finally. "I need to think about whether I can actually do this. Whether I can be with people who live this kind of life." "Take all the time you need," Dante said quietly. "We'll be here." I left the penthouse and went home, past the bodyguards, past the safety of the Morelli protection, back to my regular life that felt increasingly surreal. But as I lay in bed that night, I realized something. I'd already made my choice. I'd made it the moment I walked away from that meeting in the park without calling the police. I'd made it when I confronted Lorenzo directly, instead of just disappearing. I'd made it every time I chose to stay despite knowing what they were. I was in love with 3 mafia brothers, and somehow, impossibly, I was going to make this work. The next morning I called them. "I'm not walking away," I said when Sebastian answered. "But we need to establish some ground rules, some boundaries. Because if this is going to work, if I'm going to be part of your world, I need to know I'm choosing it with my eyes open." "Anything," Sebastian said. "Whatever you need. I want complete honesty about the business, about the danger, about everything. No protecting me from the truth." "Agreed. I want to know that my choices matter, that I'm not just being swept along by your decisions and your world. You'll always have a choice, Adrian. Always. And I want to meet them. All of them. Your father, your associates, the people in your world. If I'm going to be part of this, I need to understand it fully." There was a pause. Then Sebastian said, "That's dangerous. Once you're fully in, there's no going back." "I know. That's why I'm choosing it deliberately. No more half measures. Either I'm in or I'm out, and I'm choosing in." "Then welcome to the family," Sebastian said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. "It's going to be complicated and messy and probably insane. Good thing I'm falling for 3 men who are experts at complicated and messy," I replied. That was how I chose it. Not blind love, not manipulation, but a conscious decision to step into their world with my eyes wide open, accepting all the darkness along with the light. It was probably the craziest decision I'd ever make, but it was mine. 3 months after I'd made the decision to fully commit to this unconventional relationship, I found myself standing in front of my bathroom mirror, straightening a tie that cost more than my first car, preparing for what Dante had ominously called the family gathering. "You look terrified," Lorenzo observed from the doorway, watching me with amusement. "I am terrified," I admitted. "You're essentially taking me to meet the entire mafia leadership of the Eastern Seaboard." "They're going to love you," Sebastian said, appearing behind Lorenzo. "You're charming, intelligent, and you've somehow managed to handle all 3 of us simultaneously. That alone will impress them." or make them think I'm insane. In our world, those two things aren't mutually exclusive, Dante added, joining his brothers in crowding my small bathroom. I turned to face them, these three men who'd become my entire world, in ways I still didn't fully understand. They were wearing matching suits, because apparently, when you're identical triplets in the mafia, you lean into the intimidation factor. But I could tell them apart now without effort. Dante's perfectly composed expression, Lorenzo's barely contained energy, Sebastian's analytical observation of everything around him. "How did we get here?" I asked, not really expecting an answer. 6 months ago, I was a hotel manager living a completely normal life. Now I'm dating 3 mafia brothers and about to attend what's basically a crime family convention. "You fell in love with the wrong man," Lorenzo said with a grin. 3 wrong men, technically. "Best mistake I ever made," I murmured. Then louder, "Okay, let's do this before I lose my nerve completely." The family gathering was held at a private estate in the countryside. It was the kind of place that probably had a name like The Meadows or Rosewood Manor, but actually functioned as a fortress. Security checkpoints, armed guards, cars worth more than houses lining the circular driveway. "Stay close to us," Dante instructed, as we walked toward the main house. "Not everyone here is friendly, and some will see you as a curiosity or a weakness." "Comforting," I muttered. "Anyone who even looks at you wrong answers to me," Lorenzo added, his hand settling protectively on my lower back. Inside, the house was full of dangerous men in expensive suits and elegant women in designer dresses. The air hummed with quiet conversations, the kind where fortunes and fates were decided over cocktails. Vincent Morelli held court near the fireplace, surrounded by older men who clearly wielded significant power. "Gentlemen," Vincent called out when he saw us. "Come meet my sons and their partner." The way he said partner made it clear he hadn't quite figured out how to categorize our relationship. But he was trying. That alone was more than I'd expected. We made our way over, and I found myself being introduced to men with names I recognized from news reports and criminal investigations. These were not good people, I reminded myself. They were criminals, power brokers, men who'd built empires on violence and fear. And they were treating me like I was valuable because I mattered to the Morellis. "So this is the man who's captured all 3 of my nephew's hearts," said a woman who introduced herself as Aunt Francesca, Vincent's sister. She studied me with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "That takes either courage or stupidity." "A healthy combination of both," I replied, earning a laugh. "I like him," she declared to the brothers. "He's got spine. You'll need that if you're planning to survive in this family." The evening progressed in a strange blend of normal social gathering and clearly criminal enterprise. I met Lorenzo's security team, hard men who protected the family's interests through force when necessary. I was introduced to the family's lawyers, smooth operators who kept the legitimate businesses running and the illegal ones hidden. I shook hands with men who controlled unions, ran casinos, managed the family's various revenue streams. And through it all, the brothers stayed close, a united front that made it clear I was under their protection. "You're doing great," Sebastian whispered during a quiet moment. "Half the room is impressed you haven't run screaming." "The night's still young," I replied, making him smile. But the real test came when Michael Calabrese arrived. The temperature in the room dropped noticeably when he walked in, flanked by his own guards. This was the man whose family had targeted me, whose brother Lorenzo had killed, whose organization had been at war with the Morellis for territory and power. "Vincent," Michael said, his voice carrying across the room. "Thank you for the invitation." "Michael," Vincent replied cordially. though I could see the tension in his posture. "Welcome. We have much to discuss." The two patriarchs moved toward a private study, but not before Michael's eyes landed on me. His expression was cold, calculating, and I felt Lorenzo tense beside me. "That's him," I said quietly. "The man whose brother—" "Yeah," Lorenzo confirmed. "And now we're all in the same room pretending to be civilized. Welcome to our world." Over the next hour, I learned that the gathering wasn't just social. It was a negotiation. The Morellis and Calabreses were discussing territorial boundaries, profit sharing, rules of engagement. They were trying to end the conflict that had nearly gotten me killed, trying to establish peace through carefully worded agreements and barely veiled threats. "This is insane," I told Sebastian when we had a moment alone on a balcony overlooking the gardens. "They're literally negotiating a peace treaty between crime families like they're nations." "In many ways they are," Sebastian explained. "Each family controls territory, has resources, wields power. These gatherings prevent all-out wars that would be bad for everyone's business." "And where do I fit into this?" He turned to look at me directly. "You're the wild card that helped force this negotiation. When they targeted you, they threatened something the Morellis value more than territory: family. By claiming you as ours, we made it clear that another attempt on your life means total war. Michael Calabrese is smart enough to recognize that's not a fight worth having. So I'm—" "What, a political statement?" "You're the man we love," Sebastian corrected gently. "Everything else is just consequence." Inside, the negotiations were apparently going well because Vincent emerged from the study with Michael, and both men looked satisfied. Deals had been struck. Peace had been brokered, at least temporarily. Michael approached us directly, and every protective instinct in the brothers activated. I felt them shift, positioning themselves between me and potential threat. "I'm not here to cause trouble," Michael said, raising his hands in a peaceful gesture. "I wanted to speak with Adrian Kane." "Whatever you have to say, you can say to all of us," Dante replied coldly. "Fair enough." Michael looked at me over Dante's shoulder. "You cost me a brother, Mr. Kane. Tommy was family, and the Morellis took him from me." "I'm sorry for your loss," I said carefully. "But I didn't have anything to do with—" "I know. You're just the catalyst. The thing that made the Morellis realize they had something to lose." He paused, studying me. "My brother betrayed both our families. His death was justified by our codes. I hated it, still hate it, but I understand it. What I want you to understand is that this peace we're building, it's fragile. If you hurt my nephews, if you betray the Morellis, if you prove to be the weakness I think you might be, this all falls apart, and a lot of people die when that happens." The threat was clear, but there was also something else in his eyes. Respect, maybe, or at least acknowledgement. "I'm not going anywhere," I said firmly. "And I'm not a weakness. I'm choosing this life with full knowledge of what it means." Michael smiled slightly. "Then perhaps you're stronger than I thought." "Good. The Morellis could use someone who isn't afraid of them." He walked away, and I released a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. "That went better than expected," Lorenzo muttered. "The bar was extremely low," I pointed out. No, the rest of the evening passed without incident. I met more family members, more associates, more people who would now view me as connected to the Morellis. By the time we left, I felt exhausted from the performance of it all, being charming and brave and unfazed by the criminal empire I was now part of. In the car, on the way back to the city, I leaned against Dante's shoulder, Lorenzo's hand in mine, Sebastian's steady presence beside me. This is my life now? I said wonderingly. Mafia gatherings and territorial negotiations and men who casually discuss murder over expensive wine. Is it too much? Dante asked quietly. You can still walk away, Adrian. We'd protect you. Make sure you were safe. But we'd understand if... I'm not walking away, I interrupted. I'm just adjusting to the reality. It's one thing to know intellectually what you do, what your world involves. It's another to be in the middle of it. You handled it perfectly, Sebastian said. Standing up to Michael Calabrese took courage. I was terrified. Courage isn't the absence of fear, Lorenzo said. It's being scared and doing it anyway. You've got that in spades. Back at the penthouse, we finally relaxed. The suits came off, the performance ended, and we were just four people who cared about each other, trying to make an impossible situation work. I need to ask something, I said as we settled in the living room. And I need honest answers. Always, the three of them chorused. Where's this going? Long term, I mean. We've been doing this dance for months now, dating, falling in love, navigating the complications. But what's the end game? What does a future look like for the four of us? The brothers exchanged looks, that silent communication I'd learned to recognize. Finally, Dante spoke. We've been talking about that. The three of us, I mean. Trying to figure out how to make this work in a way that's sustainable. And we want to commit to you, Lorenzo said bluntly. Fully, completely. We want you to be ours, and us to be yours, in whatever way we can make that official. You mean marriage, I said slowly. In our world, family is everything, Sebastian explained. Making you officially part of the family means protection, status, security. It means no one can touch you without facing the entire Morelli Empire. But marriage is between two people, I pointed out. Even if we lived somewhere that recognized same-sex marriage, it doesn't exactly accommodate thruples, or whatever the word is for four people. Legally, you'd marry one of us, Dante said. Probably me, since I'm the eldest and the public face of the family. But spiritually, emotionally, you'd be binding yourself to all three of us. We'd create our own ceremony, our own vows, our own commitment. That means something to us, specifically. My heart was racing. This was real. They weren't just talking about dating or seeing where things went. They were talking about forever. That's insane, I whispered. Everything about us is insane, Lorenzo countered. Why should our commitment be any different? Because... I struggled to find the words. Because I'm just a hotel manager from Seattle. I'm nobody special. And you're asking me to marry into a mafia family. To commit to three men simultaneously? To build a life that doesn't fit any conventional model. You are special, Sebastian said intensely. You're the person who saw past the lies to who we really are. You're the one who chose us knowing exactly what we do, what our world involves. You're brave and kind and genuine in a world that's usually none of those things. We don't want conventional, Adrian. We want you. I looked at them, these three impossible men who changed my entire life. 6 months ago, I would have laughed at the idea of a polyamorous relationship with mafia triplets. Now, I couldn't imagine my life without them. I need to think about it, I said finally. Not because I don't want it, but because it's huge and I need to process what it really means. Take all the time you need, Dante assured me. But even as I said I needed time, I knew what my answer would be. I'd already committed to them in every way that mattered. This would just make it official. The next few weeks were filled with planning and preparation. I met with the family lawyers to understand what legal protections could be put in place. I talked to Vincent about what being officially part of the family would mean. I had long conversations with Marcus, who thought I was completely insane but supported me anyway. "You're seriously going to marry all three of them?" he asked over coffee one afternoon. "Legally marry one, spiritually commit to all three," I corrected. "There's a difference." "Adrian, honey, the difference is semantic at best. You're committing to a polyamorous relationship with mafia triplets. This is beyond unconventional. This is... I don't even have words." "I know, but Marcus, I love them, all of them, and I can't imagine choosing just one." He studied me for a long moment. "You're happy. Happier than I've ever seen you, actually. Even with all the danger and drama and criminal enterprise, you're genuinely happy." "I am," I admitted. "Then I guess that's all that matters. But I'm giving the most spectacular 'I told you so' speech at your funeral when this inevitably goes wrong." "Fair enough," I laughed. The ceremony was planned for the family estate in Italy, a Morelli property that had been in the family for generations. We'd have a small legal wedding first, me and Dante, with the necessary paperwork and official witnesses. Then we'd have the real ceremony, the one that mattered to us, eaten with all three brothers and the people who understood what we were building. Flying to Italy felt surreal. The private plane, the family estate sprawling across Tuscan hills, the ancient chapel where Morellis had been married for centuries. This wasn't my world, but I was making it mine. The legal ceremony was simple, almost anticlimactic. Dante and I stood before an officiant, said the required words, signed the documents. On paper, I was now Adrian Morelli, legally bound to Dante. In reality, I was preparing to bind myself to all three brothers in a way that mattered so much more. The real ceremony happened the next evening, as the sun set over the Italian countryside. We'd written our own vows, created our own ritual that honored what we meant to each other. The four of us stood in the chapel, surrounded by family and close associates who understood the significance of what was happening. Vincent was there, his expression proud, despite the unconventional nature of the commitment. Aunt Francesca dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. Marcus had flown in to witness his best friend doing something completely insane. "We're here to witness something unprecedented," Vincent began, acting as the officiant for this non-traditional ceremony. "A commitment between four souls who've chosen each other despite every obstacle. Adrian, my sons have given you their hearts. Do you accept them, knowing everything that entails?" "I do," I said, my voice strong and clear. "Dante, Lorenzo, Sebastian, you've chosen this man to be your partner, your family, your future. Do you commit to him, to protect and cherish him, to build a life together that honors all of you?" "We do," they said in unison. Then came the personal vows we'd written. Dante went first, taking my hand in his. "Adrian, you saw through my carefully constructed walls to the man underneath. You made me believe I could have something beyond duty and obligation. I promise to always be honest with you, to protect you with everything I have, and to love you with everything I am." Lorenzo was next, his intensity focused entirely on me. "You make me want to be better than what I am. You bring light into the darkness of my world. I promise to make you laugh every day, to keep you safe from all threats, and to love you with a passion that never dims." Sebastian spoke last, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "You're the one variable I could never predict, the one element that made all my strategies irrelevant. I promise to build a life with you that's worthy of your courage, to challenge and support you in equal measure, and to love you with my whole heart." Then it was my turn. I looked at all three of them, these men who'd become my everything. Dante, you gave me safety and depth. Lorenzo, you gave me passion and joy. Sebastian, you gave me challenge and understanding. Together, you gave me a love I didn't know was possible. I promise to see you as individuals, while loving you as a whole. I promise to be strong enough for this life we're building. And I promise to love each of you completely, for as long as I live. We exchanged rings, simple platinum bands that we'd had made, identical except for the inscriptions inside. Mine read, D.L. Nas, always. Theirs each read, A, forever. By the power vested in me, by being the head of this family, Vincent said with a slight smile, I declare you bound to each other. May your love be strong enough to weather any storm. The celebration that followed was both intimate and grand. Family members congratulated us. Music played, wine flowed. We danced together, me with each brother individually, then all four of us in a small circle, creating our own moment in the midst of the celebration. Later, as the party wound down, the four of us stood on a terrace overlooking the vineyards, watching the stars come out over the Italian countryside. We actually did it, I said wonderingly. We made this official. Having regrets already? Lorenzo teased. Not even a little bit, I assured him, though I'm still processing the fact that I'm now legally a Morelli. That's going to take some getting used to. You were always a Morelli, Dante said quietly. From the moment you chose to stay despite knowing the truth. This just made it official. What happens now? I asked. We go back to New York, back to regular life, except now I'm married to all three of you. Now we build our life together, Sebastian said. Figure out the logistics, navigate the complications, create something that works for us. And what does that look like practically? The brothers exchanged glances. Then Lorenzo grinned. We were actually thinking you should move in with us. The penthouse is certainly big enough, and the security is better than your apartment. Plus, we're tired of coordinating schedules to see you, Dante added. Having you under the same roof simplifies things significantly. You want me to live with you, all three of you, in a penthouse in New York City. Is that a problem? Sebastian asked. I thought about my small apartment, my independent life, the freedom I'd always valued. Then I thought about waking up next to these men, building a home with them, creating a life that was unconventional, but utterly ours. No, I said slowly. No, it's not a problem. It's actually perfect. The first year of our marriage was an education in navigating complexity. We established routines that worked for all four of us. Shared dinners when possible, individual date nights to maintain those one-on-one connections, family time where we functioned as a unit. We learned each other's rhythms, pet peeves, needs. I continued managing the hotel, and now with significantly better security and the knowledge that my employers would never give me trouble because nobody wanted to anger the Morellis. The brothers continued running their empire, gradually shifting more of their operations toward legitimate business in response to my gentle pushing. You're reforming us, Dante joked one evening, as we reviewed plans for a new construction project that was completely legal. I'm just suggesting that there are ways to make money that don't involve federal investigations, I countered. Where's the fun in that? Lorenzo teased. But I could see he was proud of the changes we were making. We faced challenges, of course. Jealousy still cropped up occasionally, requiring honest conversations about needs and attention. The danger of their world remained constant, requiring security precautions that sometimes felt suffocating. Social situations were complicated, as we had to navigate how to present our relationship to various audiences. But we also found joy in the unconventional nature of our family. Game nights that turned competitive and hilarious. Cooking together in the massive kitchen, usually ending with more mess than actual food. Quiet evenings reading, all four of us scattered around the living room in comfortable silence. Marcus remained my touchstone to normalcy, regularly reminding me that my life was insane while supporting my choices. "So how's married life to three mafia brothers?" he'd ask periodically. "Complicated, chaotic, and completely perfect," I'd respond. Vincent officially brought me into the family business, not the criminal side, but the legitimate operations. He valued my outside perspective, my understanding of normal business practices, my ability to navigate corporate situations that required someone without a criminal reputation. "You're good for them," he told me one day, as we reviewed contracts for a new hotel chain the family was acquiring. "My sons were brilliant, but isolated before you. You've made them remember what it means to have something worth protecting beyond power and money." "They've changed my life too," I said. "I was playing it safe before, living small. They've shown me I can be braver than I thought." "That's what love does," Vincent said with a slight smile. "It makes us brave and foolish in equal measure." On our first anniversary, the brothers surprised me with a trip. Back to Seattle, to the places I'd grown up. We visited my old schools, the restaurants I'd loved, the waterfront where I'd spent hours dreaming about a bigger life. "I never imagined this would be my bigger life," I told them, as we stood looking out at the water. 3 husbands, a mafia family, a life in New York. It's so far from anything I dreamed. "Better or worse?" Sebastian asked. "Better," I said without hesitation. "So much better than I could have imagined." That night, back in our hotel suite, they each gave me anniversary gifts. From Dante, a first edition book I'd mentioned loving as a child. Something I'd thought was impossibly expensive and out of reach. From Lorenzo, an experience. Tickets to travel the world together, seeing all the places I'd always wanted to visit. From Sebastian, a letter, handwritten, detailing all the moments over the past year where he'd fallen more in love with me. "You're trying to make me cry," I accused, wiping at my eyes. "Is it working?" Lorenzo asked with a grin. "Completely." I gave them my gift, a photo album I'd been compiling all year, capturing the moments of our unconventional life together. Pictures of dinners and dates, family gatherings and quiet evenings, the construction of our life together documented in images. "This is perfect," Dante said quietly, paging through the album. "We're building something real here," I said. "Something that's ours, that doesn't fit anyone else's definition but works for us." I wanted to capture that. The second year brought new challenges and changes. The Morelli empire continued its shift toward legitimacy, closing down some of the more problematic operations. Vincent announced his intention to eventually retire, leaving the business to his sons, all of them equal partners working together. "This is your influence," Sebastian told me one evening. "Father never would have considered stepping back before you came along." "I think he just wants to enjoy his later years without worrying about federal investigations," I countered. "That too. But you've shown him that family can mean something beyond the business, that there are other legacies worth building." I started a foundation using Morelli resources, focusing on helping young people escape cycles of poverty and crime, giving them opportunities that didn't involve joining family businesses like the Morellis. It was my way of balancing the scales, using the wealth generated by criminal enterprise to prevent the next generation from following the same path. The brothers supported it fully, even recruiting some of their former associates to mentor at-risk youth. showing them alternatives to the life. "You're definitely reforming us," Dante said as we attended a foundation fundraiser. "A few years ago, we'd have seen these kids as potential recruits. Now we're trying to help them avoid our mistakes." "Character growth," I replied. "I'm very proud." Our relationship continued to evolve. We'd settled into patterns that worked. Certain nights were designated for one-on-one time, others for all four of us together. We'd learned to communicate more clearly about needs and boundaries. We'd built something sustainable. But we also kept the excitement, the passion, the joy of discovery. Each brother still surprised me in different ways. Dante's quiet, romantic gestures, Lorenzo's spontaneous adventures, Sebastian's thoughtful conversations that lasted until dawn. "How do you do it?" Aunt Francesca asked me at a family dinner. "Managing 3 men, 3 different personalities, 3 sets of needs. I can barely handle one husband." "I don't think of it as managing," I said. "I think of it as loving 3 different people who happen to share the same face. Each relationship feeds the others, makes me better able to show up for all of them. Still," she said with a smile, "it takes a special kind of person. The family is lucky to have you." On our 2nd anniversary, we returned to Italy, to the estate where we'd been married. This time, we renewed our vows. This time with no audience, just the 4 of us in the chapel at sunset. "2 years ago, I promised to love you all completely," I said. "That promise has only gotten stronger. You've given me a life I couldn't have imagined, a love that defies convention, a family that's chosen rather than assigned. I'd choose you again every single day." They each renewed their vows in turn, recommitting to our unconventional family, to the life we were building together. Afterward, we had dinner on the terrace, watching the sun set over the vineyards, talking about the future. "I've been thinking about expansion," Dante said. "Not of the business, but of us." "What do you mean?" I asked. "I mean children," he said carefully. "Adoption, maybe, or surrogacy. Building a family beyond just the 4 of us." The idea hit me like a thunderbolt. Children. A family. Creating a next generation that would know they were loved by 4 parents instead of the traditional 2. "That's..." I struggled for words. "That's huge." "It's just an idea," Lorenzo added quickly. "Something we've been discussing. But only if you want it too." I looked at them, these 3 men who'd become my everything, and imagined what our children might be like. Raised in unconventional love, taught to think differently, given opportunities and protection and all the advantages of being Morellis, while hopefully avoiding the criminal legacy. "I want it," I said. "Not right now, maybe, but someday. I want to build that future with you." Sebastian smiled. "Good. Because we've already been researching agencies." "Of course you have," I laughed. The next few years unfolded like a story I couldn't have written better myself. We adopted our first child, a daughter we named Sophia, who came to us at 6 months old and immediately wrapped all 4 of her fathers around her tiny finger. Watching the brothers with her was a revelation. Dante, so controlled and reserved with the world, became soft and gentle with Sophia. Lorenzo, dangerous and intense, turned into the world's most devoted playmate. Sebastian, analytical and strategic, approached fatherhood like a puzzle to solve and became the best midnight comforter when nightmares struck. 2 years later, we adopted again, twin boys we named Marco and Luca, because apparently we were committed to the theme of multiples in our family. Our penthouse became filled with children's laughter, toys scattered across expensive furniture, art projects covering the refrigerator. We've gone from terrifying mafia triplets to fathers who negotiate with toddlers, Lorenzo said one evening, as he tried to convince Marco that broccoli was, in fact, delicious. Still terrifying, I assured him, just differently. Vincent became the doting grandfather, spoiling the children shamelessly, while also teaching them about family, loyalty, and the Morelli legacy. The good parts, the values that mattered beyond the criminal enterprise. "You've given me grandchildren," he told me one day. "Multiple grandchildren. That's a gift I didn't think I'd receive." "They're lucky to have you," I replied. "All of us are." The family business continued its transformation. By the 5th year of our marriage, the Morelli empire was almost entirely legitimate. Construction, hospitality, real estate development. No, the criminal connections remained, the reputation stayed, but the actual illegal operations had been systematically shut down or sold off. "We're going straight," Dante announced at a family meeting. "Completely. It'll take another 2 years to fully transition, but we're doing it." The decision wasn't without controversy. Some of the older associates felt betrayed, like the family was abandoning its roots. But Vincent backed his sons, and gradually, the organization transformed into something that could operate in daylight. "This is because of you," Sebastian told me one night as we reviewed the transition plans. "You showed us there were other ways to have power, other legacies worth building." "It's because of all of us," I corrected. "You three did the hard work. I just asked the questions that made you think differently." On our 5th anniversary, we gathered at the family estate again, but this time with 3 small children running around the vineyard, filling the ancient property with new life and new possibilities. "5 years," I said to Dante as we watched Marco and Luca chase each other through the grapevines, while Sofia picked flowers with Lorenzo. "5 years of making this impossible thing work." "Best 5 years of my life," Dante replied. Sebastian joined us, holding Sofia's latest flower crown creation. She's made one for each of her daddies. We're all going to look ridiculous at dinner. "We have 3 children and 4 parents," I pointed out. "We passed ridiculous a long time ago. Now we're in gloriously unconventional territory." That night, after the children were asleep, the 4 of us sat on the terrace like we had on our wedding night, looking at the stars. "Do you ever regret it?" Lorenzo asked. "Choosing this complicated life with us, instead of something normal?" "Never," I said firmly. "Normal is overrated. This, us, our family, our unconventional, beautiful mess. This is everything." "Even the mafia part?" Sebastian teased. "Even that, though I'm glad we're transitioning to legitimate business. I'd rather our children inherit construction companies than criminal empires." "Agreed," Dante said. "Though they'll still be Morellis. Still have that protection, that name, that power. We're just choosing to use it differently." I thought about everything that had happened since that rainy night when Dante, or who I thought was Dante, first walked into my hotel. The lies and revelations, the danger and protection, the impossible love that had become the foundation of my life. "I wouldn't change anything," I said. "Every moment, every complication, every challenge, it all led us here. To this family, this life, this love." "Eloquent," Lorenzo said with a smile. "Must be the Italian air," I joked. We sat in comfortable silence, the 4 of us bound together by choices and commitment, by love that refused to fit conventional definitions. Sofia called out in her sleep, and all 4 of us moved to check on her, a perfect representation of our life together. Multiple parents responding to one child's need, working together seamlessly, loving fiercely and unconventionally. This was our family. Complicated, unconventional, built on a foundation of lies that had transformed into truth. Your three mafia brothers and the man they'd deceived and then committed to completely. Three children who would grow up knowing they were loved by four parents willing to do anything to protect them. A legacy being transformed from criminal enterprise to something hopeful and legitimate. It wasn't the life I'd imagined for myself 5 years ago. It was so much better. As we returned to the terrace, Dante pulled out his phone and showed us something. A photo from our first dinner together, taken by the restaurant owner without us knowing. In it, I was laughing at something he'd said, completely oblivious to the deception, completely falling for a lie that would become the greatest truth of my life. "I remember that night," I said softly. "I knew something was starting, something important. I just had no idea how important." "Neither did we," Sebastian admitted. "We thought we could keep it compartmentalized, controlled. We had no idea you'd become everything." "No regrets?" I asked them. "None," they said in unison, and I believed them. The future stretched ahead of us, full of possibility and promise. We'd navigate the challenges together, celebrate the victories as a unit, build a life that was uniquely ours. We'd raise our children to be brave and kind, to think differently, to create their own definitions of family and love. We'd transform the Morelli legacy into something we could all be proud of. It wouldn't always be easy. Nothing worthwhile ever is. But we'd chosen each other, committed to each other, built something real from the ashes of deception. And that was worth everything. 10 years after that rainy night when everything began, I stood in the lobby of the Azure Grand Hotel, now owned by Morelli Hospitality Group, watching my three husbands negotiate with contractors about a renovation. They still moved with that dangerous grace, still commanded attention when they entered a room. But now, they did it in service of legitimate business, building an empire their children could inherit without shame. Sophia, now 12, wanted to be an architect. Marco and Luca, 10 years old, were already arguing about whether they'd go into hotel management or construction. They were growing up knowing they were loved unconditionally by four parents. That family could mean whatever you chose to make it mean. Marcus found me watching the Morellis, a knowing smile on his face. "Still think you made the right choice?" he asked. "Every single day," I replied, "even though it's completely insane?" "Especially because it's completely insane. Normal is overrated, Marcus. Love is what matters, in whatever form it takes." Dante noticed me watching and smiled, that reserved smile that was just for me. Lorenzo winked, making me laugh. Sebastian mouthed, "I love you," across the lobby. 3 men, 3 different loves, one impossible family that somehow worked. This was my life. Unconventional, complicated, perfect. And I wouldn't change a single moment. Ready to create your own unique love story? This story of Adrian and the Morelli triplets proves that love doesn't follow a rule book. It creates its own path. Whether you're drawn to unconventional romance, complex family dynamics, or stories that challenge traditional definitions of commitment, there's a narrative waiting to be told. What story resonates with your heart? Share your thoughts, favorite moments, or ideas for unique love stories in the comments below. Let's celebrate love in all its beautiful, complicated, unconventional forms. Want more stories that break the mold? Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a tale of love, loyalty, and family that dares to be different. Remember, the best love stories are the ones we choose to write ourselves, conventional or not.